All right. Good afternoon. I'm Hannah Perkey, CEO of Evelo Team, and I'm here with Bob Warner, one of our senior realtor partners. And Bob's awesome and brings us some great data every month. So it's August, the time for kids to go back to school, and State Fair. I'm going to State Fair tonight, eat some junk food. Have you been yet, Bob?
Actually, we're thinking about going tonight as well.
There you
We didn't even
go.
know that.
We might eat what is it, a donut cheeseburger? Is that what they're serving now?
I believe so. I think I'll pass on that, but I'll find something here for you.
All right, so Bob's going to bring us data on what happened in the market for July. So if you guys are thinking, hey, it's fall, we're getting settled in for the next few months, and you want to know what's happening, we can share with you what's happened in the summer months as we lead into the fall. All right, so Bob, let's just start off in general, what happened in the local housing market in July.
Yeah, so I'm, if you've been with us at all before, we kind of take a deep dive into this stuff every month. I've taken a slightly different approach this month. What I really wanted to do was kind of take a look back beyond just a year and beyond just a month, because I think it's some really interesting graphs and information that you'll see here. While we might see this like tiny bit of cooling happening from maybe what we experienced in spring and through the late summer prior back to school, you can still see from a historical perspective, big change. So the first one up here is just that average median sales price. That still is up 3.8% over last month, and we're up 15.6% year over year, okay, up to 260. But what I like to look at here is back 5 years ago in January of 2016, we were at 135. Right. So in that 5-year period of time, we've almost doubled our market's median sales price, which is a huge difference, obviously. Next up, we'll take a look at the cumulative days on market, right? I think this is probably the biggest change. You'll see that even though the days on market has gone up 3% month over month, keep in mind that's a real small number, still down 55% year over year. But what I find most interesting, and I've shared this many times, is I can remember when I've sat down at listing appointments and the average days on market for that neighborhood or that home might have been 150 or 200 days, right? So this is another one where right now we're at an average of 14 days on market. Go back to 2016, we were just a tick under an average of 110 days on market, right? So what an incredible difference that makes. So even though we might be seeing a little bit of an increase now, maybe everything doesn't sell in the first weekend, we might go back to a 2 to 3 week kind of norm in the short term as we head into winter, but compared that to 110 days, and that's significant. Next up, we talk a lot about the absorption rate. That's also like our inventory, right? So again, National Association of Realtors considers a balanced market to be between a 5 to 7 month supply of inventory. For definitely like the last year to 18 months, we've been fluctuating mostly between a 0.5 and a 0.7. We've had a couple spikes that took us a little closer to 1, right? So you'll see like last month we were at 0.5, so we're up 27%, right, month over month, but that literally is going from a 0.5 to 0.7 month supply. So we're still down 19% year over year. This was actually the most interesting one to me because I was trying to remember, I'll be starting my 9th year in real estate soon, and I started definitely in a more balanced market, but I was curious how far back it was before we were last in that 5 to 7 month range. And we again have to go all the way back to January of 2016 before we saw any of our market in that 5 month supply range, right? So just look at that graph, right? And that's what has created that seller's market for sure. And then this last one, I find this one interesting as well, just that percent of list price received, right? So never, except for the last few months, have we seen the average list price to sales price ratio be above 100%. We're above 100% again for July at 101.6. Which is up 3.6% year over year. And then again, looking back to that 2016, right, we were down there just a tick over 95%, and now we're at 101%. So what big changes, right, from what we've seen in the past.
Yeah, and is that 101% for all counties, or did you narrow it down to a few counties?
That is for all the 16 counties that make up the local board of realtors, my board.
Well, and I think what's crazy to think through is then for, specific suburbs that are maybe more desirable, that percentage is even higher. And the reason we share that number is just to simply educate our buyers, right? Like it
Yep.
doesn't mean don't buy right now, but to know that if it's listed at 225, like we're looking at 250, whatever that number may be. And as a team, we're constantly educating each other on what has worked or hasn't worked, because it's new ground. As you can see from the history Bob showed us, this is like something we've never experienced in a real estate industry, I'd say ever.
Right, for sure. And that's
Yeah.
something too that, if you're looking into a specific place, we can definitely help coach you through that because we can break that down at a very hyper local level, right?
Mhm.
Obviously, we're kind of reviewing stats that cover our entire market today for the most part, but we can literally drill down to the individual townships within each county, which is generally speaking a little bit more in line with where people are looking when they're actually shopping.
Yep. Okay. All right. So as we celebrate that we went from a 0.5 months inventory to 0.7, tell us what that looks like, Bob.
Yeah, well, to your point, this is actually a good example because the way that we've been tackling this is we've kind of taken five of our popular northern suburbs where, we happen to do a good chunk of our business comes from this, area within our region. And even though overall we went up two ticks, right, 2/10 of a tick, these numbers are actually lower than when I did this last month. So what we've done is kind of taken a look at the total number of active listings in Fishers, Noblesville, Carmel, Westfield, and Zionsville. And then one further step of how many of those active listings are under 250,000, right? So when this first dropped below 500, we thought that was pretty crazy, right? So if I add all five of these up today, as of this morning, there's 306 active listings, right? And only 14 of those 306 are $250,000 or less.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's created some barriers for first time home buyer entry. And one of the things is you guys, if you're thinking about buying and choosing a realtor, it's really important of, what are the resources? How are they looking for properties? I've heard a lot of people say, hey, I'm getting all kinds of stuff in the mail right now. Realtors are calling me. And that's part of the thing is, realtors taking activities to try and find houses that are not on the market, because at that price point, especially, there's not a lot to choose from. And oftentimes we're seeing cash buyers come in and take those, which, puts the conventional and FHA buyers out of play at times. All right.
Correct.
So talking about purchasing power, where interest rates, how are those doing right now?
Yeah, so they're actually pretty good. While they were expected to kind of continue to go up through the course of 2021, they've actually taken a little bit of a dip. So if you I did the 5 year thing again here, right, to see where we were 5 years ago and where we are today. But, at the beginning of the year, we were right around that 3%. We started to go down, we went up a little bit, and we've come back down. Again, this is just a 1 week snapshot, but, obviously dependent on credit score and a number of other things. But Freddie Mac's overall, average for that 30-year fixed mortgage for the week ending last week was 2.87%. So we're still there in that high two, low threes, depending on your circumstances. If you go back just even to about 3 years ago, right, November 2018, we were right around 5%. And while that doesn't necessarily seem like a big difference, this kind of chart gives us an overview of just kind of what that means in terms of buying power, right? So if you said, well, I'm going to wait a little bit, see if the market cools off, well, between home appreciation and interest rate increases, you could actually be, kind of causing yourself a little bit of harm if you're in a position ready to buy now, right? So, if we this is kind of looks at 250, 500, 750, right? But if we go up a half a point on a 250, that's about a $200 a month difference. If we go up a full point by January of 2023, that's about a $300 a month difference. And then for each 250, you're really doubling those things, right? So on a $500,000 loan, that's about a $400 difference 1 year to the next at a half point. Then if we go up a whole point, that's really a $700 difference. So that's a pretty considerable difference on a monthly basis. And so while it may seem that you don't necessarily want to hop into, what we're considering as a seller's market, there still are some benefits to getting in now, taking advantage of both the interest rates, the capital that you'll probably gain on the sale of your home, along with then the continued escalation in your home's value that you might experience over the next 12 to 24 months if you sit on the sidelines instead.
Yep. Yeah, I love those graphics that you provide on the cost of waiting because I think it can be intimidating for a buyer right now, but to see, how much opportunity there is from an interest rate perspective, just I think hopefully encourages people watching this to say, yeah, and you're getting this great benefit and you just need, someone who's going to fight for you and work really hard through that process to help you find the right home.
Absolutely.
So new construction, we do a lot with new construction. They've been a little bit behind because the demand's been so high. So Bob, tell me what's in the works with new construction.
Yeah, so as you can imagine, right, anytime that supply and demand don't equal, what can you try to do to fix that, right? You try to increase the supply. Well, in the housing market, there's really only two ways to do that, right? Convince existing homeowners to list their home and sell it, or alternatively, we build new homes, right? So the new construction industries have been doing the best that they can to help with that supply issue. And so we've been taking a look at what is their permit numbers, right? So by the time they go do a permit, that means they already have a signed contract in place to build a home in most cases. In some cases, some builders are moving to a full spec home model. Some are and some are doing a hybrid between the two, right? So their numbers trail a little bit. So their numbers that we have today are for the month ending in June. They don't release their numbers until a little bit later in the month, but month over month, June of 2021 versus June of 2020, construction permits are up 33%. And then year to date, they're up 46%. Their area is the 9 county area versus 16 county areas surrounding Indianapolis. One of the things that caught my eye, Hamilton County, which is just north of Marion County and Indianapolis, and again, an area where we do a lot of business. The building permits are up 82% over this time last year. So that was a number that just really stood out at me. Some of the problems that new construction is facing are material costs have skyrocketed. They're in short supply, and then like virtually every industry in the country right now, labor is in a short supply. So they are playing catch up, but as we can see by that, there has definitely been an increase and hope to alleviate some of that supply and demand issue.
Yeah. And just a reminder, if you're thinking about new construction, reach out to us. We've had over 2 decades of experience working in new construction. So to help you understand the differences between the builders, to walk you through the process, to advocate for you. We want to make sure that you have those resources available, not just in like selling your current home, your existing home, but also in new construction, and lots of good options out there as they continue to pull permits.
Right.
All right. So any final thoughts about state of the market that we should go over today?
Yeah, I always like to try to end with something, right? And I think the favorite party question to ask your realtor friend, right, is always how's the market, right? And while none of us have that exact crystal ball to be able to predict the future, we do try to do a really good job of bringing this information to you each month to try to anticipate where the market's headed, and what you can do to prepare yourself, whether you're buying, selling, both, maybe want to invest in real estate here or somewhere out of the state with a short-term rental like an Airbnb or Vrbo. But I think the thing that we're seeing right now with that short supply of inventory, you can see how long it took us to get from a balanced market to where we are today, right? That was a 5-year period of time from when we were last in that balanced category to where we are today. So none of these changes are going to happen overnight, right? It's not like the clicking the light switch on and off. We're not just going to go from a 0.7-month supply of inventory that we're in today to suddenly being back in that 5 to 7 month supply of inventory. That said, when we talk about this every week as a team, right, we do see some nuances changing every week, right? And so it definitely, there's really no danger of a significant decline in home prices in the short term just because of those tight inventory conditions. But we do expect that those prices will begin to appreciate at a slightly slower pace, right? We're on 15 to 20% year over year growth with that median home sales price, where traditionally when our market's been growing, we've more grown in like the 3 to 5% range. So we might go back to that a little bit, right? And there certainly is always a little bit of a difference. Every one of those graphs you'll see anytime I sit down with someone, I describe it like a roller coaster, right? So from April to August, our market always sees that roller coaster go to the top of the hill and come down, and then kind of goes down a little bit till January, right? But if you compare January to January, that following January, as long as we're in an increasing market, is always higher than what the preceding January is. So might we see that frenzied conditions of the summer of 2021 take a little bit of a notch down? I would say yes. But I think we'll still see growth, and we'll definitely still see tight inventory for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, awesome. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. We're glad to have you here today and to be a resource to you. You can reach out to us anytime with any questions. We kind of nerd out about this data, so feel free to ask us, and we're glad to share anything that will help you in your process. Our contact info, it will be in the comments, but our email address is info@eveloteam.com, or you can go right to our website of eveloteam.com to reach out to us. And direct phone number that we have someone always answering is 317-863-9011. We appreciate it. And with Steph not being here, then we always wrap up. We want to make sure you make each moment count. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Take care, guys.